The Families are one of the oldest street gangs in the Grand Theft Auto universe, specifically tied to Los Santos. Rockstar designed them as a direct parallel to real-world Crips sets in Los Angeles. Their colors, hand signs, territory, and rivalries reflect the culture of South Central LA gangs from the late 20th century. The Families were originally conceived to embody neighborhood loyalty, with a focus on defending their streets against rivals. Unlike larger organized crime syndicates in GTA, their identity is built around local turf, block pride, and shared cultural symbols. Members identify themselves through green clothing, graffiti tags, and customized cars painted in gang colors. In Rockstar's design, the Families serve as one half of Los Santos' main gang rivalry. Their primary enemies, the Ballas, were modeled after the Bloods of Los Angeles. The choice of green for the Families instead of the Crips' traditional blue was deliberate. It allowed Rockstar to reference real-world gang structures without directly replicating them. From their earliest appearance, the Families' presence is defined by three elements: territorial control, internal loyalty, and their ongoing war with the Ballas. This conflict shapes much of the storyline in both GTA, San Andreas, and GTA 5, creating a through line across decades of in-game history. During the early 1990s, depicted in Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, the Families were at the height of their influence. At this time, they were known as the Grove Street Families, led by Sean Sweet Johnson, with his brother Carl C.J. Johnson playing a central role in the storyline. The Grove Street Families controlled significant portions of Ganton, Idlewood, and surrounding neighborhoods in Los Santos. Their identity was built on respect for the community and strong resistance against their enemies. Members wore green clothing, used gang tags to mark their turf, and drove cars like green Savannas and Greenwood sedans to signal their dominance. The Families' greatest rivalry was with the Ballas. In the early 1990s, the two gangs were locked in violent turf wars involving drive-bys, assassinations, and the drug trade. The Ballas, with their ties to crack cocaine distribution, threatened the stability of Grove Street's leadership. This conflict defined much of CJ's journey as he worked to restore his gang's strength and reclaim lost territory. Another major element in this period was the Families' stance against drugs. Unlike the Ballas, who fully embraced crack distribution, the Families initially resisted dealing hard drugs, believing it damaged their communities. This decision weakened them financially but reinforced their identity as protectors of their neighborhoods. By the end of the San Andreas storyline, CJ and Sweet had re-established the Grove Street Families as a dominant force, reclaiming turf and restoring their reputation in Los Santos. This period is remembered as the Families' peak era, when their unity and leadership allowed them to stand as one of the strongest gangs in the city. Following the events of the early 1990s, the Families began to lose the strength and unity that had once made them dominant. While the Grove Street Families regained control of territory during CJ's storyline, this stability did not last into the years that followed. The main cause of their decline was fragmentation. Instead of remaining one unified gang under a single leadership, the Families split into separate neighborhood-based sets. Each clique controlled only a few blocks, and while they all identified with the Families' green colors, they often competed against one another for resources and influence. This internal division weakened their ability to resist rivals. The Ballas, who had embraced large-scale drug trafficking, expanded their reach and steadily reclaimed much of Los Santos. The Vagos also grew stronger, pushing into territories that once belonged to the Families. Another factor in the decline was the collapse of centralized leadership. Without figures like Sweet Johnson or CJ actively guiding the group, the Families lost the organization that once defined them. Local leaders lacked the authority to unite the gang citywide, leaving them vulnerable to both outside enemies and internal rivalries. By the time of Grand Theft Auto 5, set in 2013, the once mighty Grove Street Families had dissolved into smaller, struggling sets. Their legacy remained visible in graffiti, gang colors, and local pride, but their influence over Los Santos had diminished dramatically compared to the 1990s. By 2013, the Families existed only as a fractured network of small sets, each with its own turf and leadership. These cliques no longer operated under a unified banner like the Grove Street Families of the 1990s. Instead, the group was divided into localized gangs spread across South Los Santos. The main sets active in GTA 5 include the Chamberlain Gangster Families, the Forum Drive Families, the Carson Avenue Families, and the Davis Neighborhood Families. Each set controls only a few blocks and maintains its own hierarchy, making cooperation between them difficult. Although all wear green and claim allegiance to the Families, conflicts between sets are frequent, and this constant infighting prevents them from regaining their former power. Their territories are scattered across neighborhoods like Davis, Strawberry, and Chamberlain Hills. Murals, green gang tags, and members dressed in green identify these areas. In GTA 5, the families are portrayed as stuck in decline. They remain visible in street culture, but their lack of unity allows rivals such as the Ballas and Vagos to operate with fewer obstacles. The gang is no longer the citywide power it once was, but rather a collection of weakened factions tied together by history and color, not by effective leadership. Franklin Clinton represents a new generation of the families. While tied to the Chamberlain gangster families through his friend Lamar Davis, Franklin himself is portrayed as someone who is cautious about gang life and skeptical of its long-term future. His involvement reflects the realities of a younger member who recognizes both the loyalty gangs offer and the limitations they impose. Lamar Davis, by contrast, is deeply invested in the family's identity. He is proud of his gang ties, loyal to Chamberlain Hills, and constantly seeks to prove himself against rivals like the Ballas. Lamar's actions throughout Grand Theft Auto 5 often pull Franklin into conflicts, whether through drug deals, repossession jobs, or retaliations against rival gangs. The family's decline is highlighted through Franklin and Lamar's experiences. Missions like Repossession and Hood Safari demonstrate the dangers of small-scale gang wars, where disputes over drugs and turf quickly spiral into shootouts. Franklin's journey is ultimately about leaving the cycle of street gang violence behind, while Lamar embodies those who remain committed to the gang even as it struggles. Their relationship underscores the broader theme of the family's decline, younger members caught between loyalty to the gang and the desire for a better life. By the events of Grand Theft Auto 5, the family's most important rivalry remains with the Ballas. This conflict stretches back decades and continues to dominate their interactions in South Los Santos. Even though both gangs have weakened compared to their past, the hostility between them is constant, with drive-bys, ambushes, and turf battles shaping much of the local street life. The rivalry is seen clearly in missions. In Repossession, Franklin and Lamar attempt to recover a bike from the Ballas, which escalates into violence. In Hood Safari, a supposed drug deal between Lamar, Franklin, and the Ballas quickly turns into a deadly shootout. These examples highlight how unstable relations are between the gangs, where even small business dealings often collapse into bloodshed. Beyond the Ballas, the families also face tension with the Vagos. Although the Vagos' main turf is in East Los Santos, their drug networks bring them into conflict with families' sets in neighboring areas. Occasional clashes erupt over territory, adding another layer of pressure on the already weakened families. The Ballas maintain citywide connections, and the Vagos link into larger cartel operations. By comparison, the family's fragmentation leaves them unable to compete effectively, forcing them to fight constant defensive battles rather than expand their influence. The families are heavily inspired by the Crips, one of the largest and most well-known street gangs in Los Angeles. Rockstar adapted key elements of Crip culture when designing the families, but altered them slightly to avoid direct replication. The most visible change is color. While the Crips traditionally identify with blue, the families wear green. This adjustment allowed Rockstar to keep the reference clear without copying exact details. Graffiti, hand signs, and customized cars are also drawn from real-life gang culture. Rockstar used these visual markers to make the families recognizable in-game, just as Los Angeles neighborhoods are marked by Crip graffiti and street colors in reality. The rivalry between the families and the Ballas reflects the Crips Bloods conflict. By reimagining the Bloods as the purple-clad Ballas, Rockstar created a parallel feud that drives much of Los Santos' gang violence. Across the GTA timeline, the families illustrate the rise, fall, and fragmentation of a once powerful gang. In the early 1990s, as shown in GTA, San Andreas, the Grove Street families were strong, united, and respected under leaders like Sweet Johnson. Their battles against the Ballas defined the era, and with CJ's return, they briefly regained their dominance in Los Santos. After these events, the families entered a period of decline. This decline is evident in Grand Theft Auto 5, where the families appear as fragmented cliques struggling to survive. Franklin and Lamar's stories reflect this shift. Franklin represents those who see no future in the gang lifestyle, while Lamar represents loyalty to the families despite their weakness. Together, their experiences show how the gang's legacy lives on, even in diminished form. The family's rivalries, especially with the Ballas, remain central to their identity, but by the 2010s, their ability to project power has eroded. They exist more as a symbol of history than as a dominant force in Los Santos. In Rockstar's world, the families embody both the cultural roots of Los Santos and the challenges gangs face when loyalty, rivalry, and community identity collide with the realities of crime and survival. Their timeline captures a transformation from dominance to decline, making them one of the most detailed and enduring gangs in the GTA series. Now, if you want to go even deeper into the world of GTA 5, don't miss our breakdown of every major gang, their colors, turf, and hidden details you never noticed. Click here and dive in.